You look. Go. Yeah,
Okay,
it's on.
welcome everybody. This is a combined meeting between the Comprehensive Committee, Bonnie Franson and Sam Justino, and the Architectural Review Board. And we're going to open first thing on the agenda with the ARB to discuss a Sunoco site plan that recently came in for signage. Bonnie's going to have this dialogue. We have on Zoom or conferencing in two of the applicants representing Sunoco. This portion of the meeting will be open for public comment at the end of the meeting. And from there, we're going to go into the regular comp meeting that the ARB will then need to adjourn their meeting. If they need further discussion, they would set up another meeting to do so. Right, so right now I'll have Ted Ujoa is the chairperson of the ARB. Ted, you can open the meeting and...
So I'm going to call to order. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
to open the meeting. If you
Yep.
could please.
If we can please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So at this time, I'll have Bonnie, maybe the applicant.
So the ARB is present, the members of the ARB. The Comprehensive Plan Committee can't deliberate. They're here for informational purposes because we're working on a comprehensive plan which will turn into zoning regulations ultimately. But the ARB is conducting their business. And so the first item on the agenda is the Sunoco proposed new signage for cabinets, for canopy cabinets, A+ storefront. So, ladies, would you like to provide an overview of what's being proposed?
Sure, I can do that.
And I believe everybody should have hard copies of the application from, does everybody have copies of the application from previous submissions?
Yep.
Okay. All right, go ahead. Thank you.
For the canopy, we are refacing the canopy. We're not changing the structure of it. We're installing new fascia and signage onto the existing structure. For the the freestanding sign, we are replacing cabinets. So we're keeping the same square footage. We are just updating the cabinets for LED internal lighting and the faces to change them over to the updated brand. And the A+ building, we are keeping the same structure and refacing the A+ building, facing the fascia itself, and updating the signage to the new look.
When you say cabinets, what are you referring to? You're referring to this freestanding sign?
The freestanding sign itself, yes.
Okay.
The poles will stay. We're replacing the cabinet itself to update the lighting internally and the faces on the cabinet.
Okay. So, and just for the record, could you provide your name and who you work for and who you're representing?
Sure. I'm Jessica Davis. I work for Pro Sign Company, and we are installing and manufacturing the signage for the station.
Okay. Did this appear before the building inspector first before it was referred to the ARB?
I'm not positive of that.
Okay, because I know there's an ARB application.
The building department did receive it.
They received it and then it got forwarded to the ARB. Yes? Okay.
I'm sorry, there was some concern about whether it should be forwarded to the ARB or the planning board because there was some language on the application, on the documents that were submitted, stating that the canopy was going to be removed and disposed of. So we did ask for some clarity regarding that.
All right, so I'm not sure if you heard that.
Yes.
Do you want to, would you like to provide clarification on that?
I believe it was a typo on the actual verbiage for the canopy section. I did see that after reviewing the application and after receiving a comment on the canopy structure. It does say on the application that we are removing the canopy, which is not correct. So that can be updated because we are not removing the existing canopy and fascia. We are refacing it, going over top of what's there.
Okay, so, A or B, have you had a chance to take?
I've got some questions. I was there for over 2 hours.
Okay,
And I spoke to the owner. So I'd like to run down some questions. Can you hear my voice? My name is Stephen Tolley.
can you hear?
I can hear you, but it's a little quiet.
Maybe put a little closer to your,
Okay. I've been talking all day, so.
is that better?
I went to the location, and I need, if you can, if you don't mind, if you can clarify some things for me. When they say they're not gonna remove the canopy, I got on a ladder, and I took this bottom screen off, and saw how the sign that's existing is attached. I've been in the building industry and the flooring industry for 43 years, but looking at the transition that you have, I can't see how you can do what you want to do without pulling that, at least the front fascia off.
Are you talking about the canopy itself?
Yeah, the canopy itself, yeah. The canopy is bolted against the building. Intermittently, you've got LED lights.
Building or the canopy?
The canopy itself is bolted to the building.
That fascia stays in place, and we mount the new fascia system on top of the fascia.
Well, per your plan, how would you do that? The sign they have up there now is actually protrudes outwards. So in other words, it's in a very large embossed sign. Your sign would be much smaller, denoting, a smaller Sunoco image.
So the large embossed sign is referring to the 8+ sign on the building?
I'm talking about the building right now, the deli itself.
Okay, so the building is different. The building would be removing that 8+ sign that's there, and so what the existing fascia is flex face. So it's like a fabric face, so it illuminates. So we would be removing that flex face, and then we use the existing structure, and we mount ACM, which is like a aluminum composite material. We mount that onto the existing structure and replace the lighting, so it still provides down lighting, but it is an opaque face, and then we would install the new sign structure onto that face. So we do have to remove the 8+ embossed face that is there now and that existing fascia on the building.
So what you're saying is that you're gonna unbolt the sign itself with the existing supporting structure to remain in place, therefore
Yes.
installing the new sign onto the existing structure,
Correct.
okay? There's another picture here that denotes a 45-degree angle of the signage around that building. Is that correct or incorrect?
Are you referring to what is the plan view that shows?
Yeah, it says page 4.
Page 4. So
Yeah.
that's our plan view that shows what the shape of the building is, and I do believe that is correct, the shape of the building, to marry up to what's there now.
Well, the shape of the building, I didn't see that the corners were 45 angles, but we can verify that.
Okay.
And let's see. There are 5 lighting poles that are on the perimeter of the area itself. Are they going to be repainted?
Yes.
Do you know anything about that?
They would be repainted.
In
The
what?
light poles.
Yeah, in the onyx gray from Sunoco.
So there's a new gray color now, it's called Sirius Gray, that's what the light poles would get painted.
Okay, because that's not in any information. That's just something I got from the owner.
Right, that's sort of ancillary, they don't put that in the plans necessarily, but they do get painted, all the bollards, any existing painted curving would be painted, so we would be refreshing the entire site at once.
Okay, and I know, I've looked into the literature. I know the top of the pumps, they pull off, the bottoms come off, and so does the, there's just pull and replace on that. I'm gonna now go to the existing sign that you have there. I don't know if you have an original picture, but it's actually poles that go through, dirt and,
We lost you there.
Go ahead.
she's still there?
Can you hear us at all?
I think you lost the microphone.
Can you hear me?
You definitely lost it.
Okay, try again.
There we go.
You can hear again?
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to go back. I've actually gone through several pages of Sunoco's, it's a transition, it's a 93-page, you know, what Sunoco policies follow as far as signage and other factors. And so you're going to keep the existing sign, but you want to keep there where it has car wash on it. You're not installing a whole new post, you're gonna leave that there but repaint it in blue,
Right, the poles will remain.
so that it would be the same height as it is now.
Correct. Same height, same square footage, same size, just updated.
Okay. Because on the plan, it looks like the poles are longer than the existing, the way it's denoted on there.
Okay.
You know what I
No,
mean?
we would not be changing the poles.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to, clear up issues that I just see here, so it's more, a lot of it is clarity, based on what, the other thing is, do you intend to, or you have intentions of, wanting to put in the fan blade signs? Do you know what they are?
Which ones are you referring to?
They're called fan blades, they're like an arrow, traditionary to the new transition of Sunoco. They go in between,
On the columns
Yeah.
underneath the canopy?
yeah,
Yeah, so they're decorative arrows, there's nothing really to them, they're just bent up ECM that goes on the column.
okay. I'm just crossing out things as you've actually answered them. And of course, the sign will be illuminated, I guess, in the same fashion it is now, or you can actually transition it to LED lighting it has here.
Yes, I mean, there is a night view that shows in the backgrounds, certain backgrounds are opaque.
I'm gonna ask you a technical question, you're probably not gonna have the answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. It refers to the light on the sign itself. Do you know how many lumens it projects, meaning the brightness of the sign? I know you probably don't have that, but I'm
I
just
don't have
asking.
that on hand, but I can obtain the information from
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I'm interested to know what the lumens signage is now, and what the lumens would be on the new sign with the new installed LED lights.
We can provide that information, so
Okay.
existing lumens versus proposed.
Okay. Because I'm just looking to see how intense or how much more intense the lighting would project. It's something that people always question.
Okay. It would end up being less because of the opaque faces. So you would end up with less lumens, since some of the backgrounds of the faces are opaque and only the logo illuminates.
Right.
So it would end up being a little bit less bright. The lumens typically are less when you go to the LED, but I can provide the information if that's helpful.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was going to be much brighter than what it is. And also, we may need more clarity on the issue of going back to the store, the building itself on, like you want to change, like I'm looking at the lighting here that's existing. And the lights are LEDs changed a year ago, according to the owner. And they go horizontal. So you were mentioning there are going to be new electrical changes?
There would be LED downlighting, because the way the structure is now, the LEDs that are inside of that structure, they illuminate the face of the fan, where the new downlighting would just be for strictly that downlighting to light up the area around the building.
Right, right.
So they're gonna project down instead of out.
Okay, Because wouldn't that would be, well, it would fall under more of a, not signage, but it would fall under possible building permit rather than under the signage application. But that's something to, I guess, to be worked out.
Okay.
I have a question for you. Talking to the owner, he's under they want to replace, they need to replace their refrigerator that holds their cold cuts. Now, the existing door, there are two doors. Between the two doors, there's a, I don't know if it's a support, I'll call it a support column at this point. In order to put a new freezer in there and get the other one out, those doors that are existing now, they need to come out. And new doors are supposedly going to be placed in there. Do you know anything about that?
I have not heard anything about that. We're not dealing with anything interior on this portion of the project. But we can ask the store and find out, but I haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, because according to the owner, Sunoco actually, a representative went there. Daniel was the original representative in the area. There's a new representative now from Sunoco. See, the signage application was signed by Daniel, I believe his name is Culture. He's no longer the regional rep, there's a new rep for Sunoco. So I guess they'll check with them on that. I asked the owner to check on that to see what would have to be done, because that's a whole new ballgame as far as, what's there. Because it would need actually a new, are you putting pictures up? Yeah, I
We're
don't know.
trying.
I'm trying to, just ignore
Just
this.
ignore
Okay.
it. We're listening to you.
Well, you know what it is, it's just that if those doors are
We can
pulled.
ask them, we can try to find out more information for you
Yeah.
on what they would have to do.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they'd have to put a header above there. I mean, my measurement, they'd have to put probably a 1/2 inch steel by 4 inches in width by 8 foot in length in order to connect to the two other supports. So, because the whole frame is gonna come out. See, I don't know if you have a picture of the original door. You probably
We
could.
have some survey photos from when we looked at the site initially.
Yeah, because there's I'm just trying to find I thought was a page here that showed a couple of the, where it shows it, it's on your page number 3. And
Number 3.
yeah, it's where you have, want to put in the etched glass signature on.
Right, the front door is the details.
Right, now when you look at that door that's depicted in this image, the door closes within itself. In other words, there's no support beam in between those two doors. See what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the picture that's on page 3 is kind of just a boilerplate photo that we use for all doors to show the decal placement.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
figured you just
necessarily
had there to show the etching that's gonna go on it. But I just didn't know if you knew anything about this, this move that they need to do with these doors, because that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a whole different project than ours, but I can ask the area rep, I can ask Dan Holscher and see if he knows anything about it, and then follow up with the rep who can contact the owner and see if they have any plans in place.
Right. I just wanted to refer to one thing. It's page 5 of 93 in Sunoco's retail image guidelines. It says here, when mandated or when goalpost identification system is not permitted, a standard Sunoco monument sign may be installed. And it goes on to say about the logo cabinet would be installed closest to the street in the upper corner of the monument. Has anyone from Sunoco spoken to you about any difference between this existing sign or this mandated replacement if not permitted?
So it's not necessarily a mandated replacement, there's an option for a monument sign if they're unable to have a goalpost sign.
Right, when
But since
mandated, it
they
says
have a
when
goalpost
mandated.
sign already, they would want to replace or replace what's there with some
Right.
like for like.
Yeah, I'm just quoting them, they have it in there again, page 5 of 93. It just says, you know, when mandated, meaning, I guess, you know, the villages or town or whoever's, you know, zoning laws or building permits, so on and so forth. I just didn't, so, you know, again, I wanted to clear that up because, again, the sign is a important issue that we're looking at, you know. So I hope you didn't confuse you. So my understanding, I don't think Sunoco has any signage that could be done by hand. I think every sign that they have is actually electrical.
Pretty much, yes. And since they have existing electrical LED digits, they would want to replace what's there for the consumer and for the dealer himself to be able to operate them.
All right.
Yeah.
So other than that, they haven't spoken to you. The last thing, and not to take all of your time, but it's important because under the canopy where the gas pumps are, there are 1-by-1 box lights that actually protrude downward. So they drop roughly 6 inches. Sunoco's new image on the canopy has flush lighting. Are you going to do flush lighting? Because that's not in the application. Or are you doing
Yes, they will
anything?
be replacing those lights with flush mounted lights. It's not part of the sign package. We don't typically have them considered as signage. They don't usually go into the package, but they will be replaced. All the existing lights will be upgraded to a flush mounted LED light.
Okay, I'm gonna ask someone here, if you could hold on, bear with me for 1 minute. Where does that fall? Does that fall under the building aspect, or does it fall under signage?
You're talking about the lights that are already existing there?
The existing lights are boxes 1-by-1,
Okay.
measure
And
6
what-
inches
what
in
is-
depth.
What is the issue with that?
The issue with that is they are going to be replaced by flat lights that are 1-by-1.
Electrical.
Right. Right, so those boxes will actually be removed.
Okay, but I don't really see an issue as far as I'm concerned with that.
Well, the lights come into the box.
Right, no, but like Susan said, we have, one second. When we're changing electrical, now if they're gonna change the bulbs, let's say just screw in bulb from one wire to another LED, that's not an issue. When we start changing the fixtures, the electrical fixtures, that's generally, you'd have to have an Orange County licensed electrician for this county, and then we would have one of the village-approved electrical underwriters approve of the installation.
I understand what you're saying, but my point is that
Okay.
we need more information on how that procedure would take place.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, okay, go ahead.
So how do we go about doing it? Who gets
They'll
it?
give it to us. They have to ask them after request it.
Okay,
If it's, again, I don't know the degree of their change, again, if they're just changing a small outlet for.
no, it's, picture that up there.
Okay, it's a large.
That's what it looks like.
Okay, yeah.
And look at that. That's what it's gonna be.
Oh, it's gonna be that much, okay.
You understand? The drop box is gonna be gone.
Okay.
It's gonna be flat lighted, flush mount, right? So, I don't know what the electrical input up in that box is. If they've gotta change electrical outlets or whatever.
So,
What the LED would be, what's the difference? So it doesn't impact the first
Susan, my assistant, has something she wanted to say.
Yeah, I do have very important information for you. Basically, you have.
If you could,
Information for
if
who, me or for them?
you could speak into the
Okay.
microphone, just the microphone so that the individuals who are on the Zoom call can hear you.
And Susan, introduce yourself so they know who you are.
What we have in the top,
Susan?
my name is Susan, and I'm assistant building inspector for the village of Washington. We have a building permit, 2, that have not passed. They expired. One was in 2012, it will be right to you on that. And we have another one for 2013. 2013 expired on 6/25. It was issued 13, it expired on 9/23/2013. On this paperwork here, we have changed it to LED lights. Now again, this is expired, it doesn't no longer exist. It is stating here, the facts that They're replacing the existing cabinet signs, changing to LED. And they give the contractor's name and information. Electrical certification is required. So this is something that does not exist any longer at this point. Now, the other one is one that was issued January 5th of 2011. Expiration date is January 4th, 2012. This you would be interested in. The electrical work. 450-amp single-phase outlets replace 40 light fixtures. And it goes into RTR machine to refrigerate condiments, open air case, 2-door freezer, soda machine, outdoor grill, 4 coffee brewers, hot water tower, cappuccino machine, and a microwave. The water supply lines are required to backup flood prevention. So the point here is, there is no building department. There's no permit representing this any longer. This has to be resubmitted with the facts as to what is actually going in. We have permits that are inaccurate. We have to follow through on that. We need the color. We need the color, which should be easy, I would hope, to benefit the village of Washingtonville, the municipality that we work in, that the people will have the ability coming in for a new business, which is important to the village, that they are able to choose what color they would accept. And we're asking that really.
You're referring to the lighting color
No, I'm referring actually to the color of what's going on.
of all the new components?
Yeah.
Okay, because once Steve is done, then I'd like to get into I kind of want to step back and I have some bigger
Okay.
picture questions that really relate to the building department and some interpretations. But again, I
Because
want you
also
to
what
finish
would
up.
be needed is that question that the owner posed me, that they would replace the existing doors that they have here. Yeah, in other words, to do that interior work they're talking about, this is the existing door, see the support pin? And this is the way it's gonna be in the end, where the 2 doors, technically it's called 2 doors kiss together. So that has to be included in their new,
Everything has to.
yeah, you know, because there's no way to get those freezers in or out of there without that.
Exactly.
They won't fit. From what I understand, they're pre-built. It's one piece that goes in, and it's 1 foot 8 inches wider than one of these doors. Yeah, so that's why they said, yeah, Sunoco was trying to figure out what to do with that.
Steve, is that a separate project completely aside from the signs that we're discussing?
I'm just bringing the information to you. What you do
Okay.
with it is gonna be
That would
what
be
you
a
do.
different- Yeah, that
There's
would be a
building,
different.
there's building department and there's signage.
Yeah, the signage is
The
completely
question-
separate.
No, I understand that, but what she was just reading pertained to building aspects.
Right.
Right. This is a building aspect, not a signage.
Right,
The
it's
front
completely
doors.
separate. Yeah,
So what I'm
absolutely.
saying is that in that submitted application, they need to do additional information about the doors.
Absolutely.
Because that the owner was talking about it, and obviously, it's not in there.
No,
They spoke about, like you said, he's talking about the machines. You know, they're gonna put all the machines in there and all that
But
stuff,
not
but,
yet.
and that is the obstacle that they have for the freezer. And,
well, I wanted you to be aware that these are not active any longer. And it's something that we need a complete
right.
assurance what is going to happen.
If I may interrupt for a moment, so, ladies, are you able to see what I have on the screen, because I'm sharing it?
Yeah.
Okay, and so now for the benefit of everybody who's in the audience and the ARB, I can bring up plans, I can bring other things up for you to be able to reference if you would like to. Plus I have sections of the code as well loaded up.
Can I interject for a second as to Bill?
This is Megan, thank you. I work for Sunoco. I'm sorry, I lost you guys for a minute as I was trying to unmute myself, but in reference to the issue with the front doors and the coolers, and the freezers or whatever equipment the dealer is needing to replace, that is a totally separate project from this, what we have submitted our application for. This project is solely to re-image the exterior of the building, the exterior of the canopy, and the price sign. However, I can speak to equipment loading in when needed, when we have this scenario where there's a hole in between the two doors. They can often remove a full pane of glass, and there is full height storefront glass at this location, and they can get in equipment that way and then replace a pane of glass. Again, I'm not familiar with what equipment this particular dealer is trying to replace or install, but that's how we have typically had the workaround for the front doors.
So I'm gonna ask if we could, the ARB members, the other ARB members, do you have comments specific to the signs? Because that's right now immediately on the agenda. We'll have to tackle some of these other questions, but in particular signs, given the Architectural Review Authority and the sign regulations at this point.
I'd like to interject for a second, if I may. In regard to what we're doing here, if the lighting is dramatically changed and will be increasingly brighter, that would be also something that this board would have to consider approving. The electrical aspect of it is easily done by the building department. I can basically put that on the permit, who would have to do what and what we would require. But the lighting itself could be an issue. We already have a lighting issue that has been gone unchecked for a long time. A lot of people complain about the brightness of the facility. So that would have to be addressed by this board as well.
Yeah, I was not able to hear a lot of what the woman who was speaking about the lighting said. She was difficult to hear. But to address your point of the lighting, it will not change dramatically. If anything, the lighting will be more on the building, will be more directed downwards towards the sidewalk to illuminate the area around the building as opposed to outwards, as it is now, as Jessica has explained much earlier. And with the price sign, it will be very, very similar in brightness. However, if there are feedback from neighbors or the board, we have the ability to tone it down if that's what the desire is. But nothing will be dramatically brighter.
Mr. Foley was actually referring to mostly the lighting, which I agree with, could be an issue over the gas tanks under the canopy, the gas tank canopy. He said they were going to be larger. So if they're increasing the size,
No, not gonna be larger.
they're not, you said they were going to be, you said they were like this, they're going to be like this.
No, I was trying to give you a visual example of protruding
okay.
and flatness.
Okay, I
signage.
apologize.
They're still gonna be one by one, but they'll be flat.
So it's
So
not
I was
really an
wondering
issue.
what
Okay.
internal
Correct.
wiring they'd
Those
have to.
boxes will go away,
Yeah.
and it will become a flush mounted light.
Right, so would you need an electrician to move any parts? So, because I see the wiring actually comes down into that one by one, I'll call, box, I'll call it. Lighting
The
box.
boxes are, the boxes are removed and new fixtures, and all of the wiring inside of those boxes are removed, and new fixtures with new wiring are installed with new connections by a licensed electrician.
So I would also assume, the canopy lights around the actual building would also be rewired and restructured as well. Am I correct?
Yes, they're completely different. The building, we call it a building band. The band around the building, that's receiving new lights, those will be completely new lights on new wiring.
As long as
Okay,
it's licensed.
I'd like to get into a couple standards. So in terms of prohibited uses, any trade, industry, or use which is noxious or offensive by reason of the emission of smoke, noise, gas, odor, dust, vibration, or excessive light beyond the limits of its lot, so as to be dangerous or prejudicial to the public health, safety, or general welfare, is prohibited. In addition, lighting facilities of any kind with light sources which are visible from outside the property lines, which create glare beyond the property lines, or which create public hazards. So ultimately, when any lighting comes in, there has to be evidence provided of what the foot candles are and what all proposed lighting is to make that determination that it's not at a level where it's prohibited. So, we would expect that when you come in with lighting for the canopy, that the lighting's going to be recessed, that the illumination levels are gonna be such that they are not bleeding out onto public right-of-way. And then I'm just going to, in terms of types of luminaires, that if you're using LEDs, they need to be of a yellow or amber color, that's 2700 to 3000 Kelvin, because that's what's gonna start to bring you, between the foot candles and the color, it's not gonna be this very, very bright white, frankly, extremely and unnecessarily bright sight, which is, I think, what's being discussed here. So that's regarding the lighting, but, the purpose of this meeting is really to get into the Architectural Review Board's review of the signage. And so fundamentally, and this is a question for the building department, the sign law, which has been in existence for some time, says that you are allowed a cumulative total of one freestanding sign or wall sign on a building or a lot. So that's either one freestanding or one building, like a wall sign. So the canopy, and if you look at the definition of sign, it talks about the identification, advertisement of the use. So I believe the canopy says Sunoco or is advertising the use. The freestanding sign is there advertising the use, identifying the use, I should say. And then you have other miscellaneous items that from a zoning perspective and a definition perspective could be considered signs.
Right.
So I think number one, the question is, what can they do going forward? And because they have to stay with, either they have to stay within that limit, or you have to determine, because there is a provision in the code that talks about existing signs, that they're allowed that number because you consider them as having been legal signs. I'm gonna try and scroll up to that. Here we go. So an existing sign, and this is what is considered exemptions, that they're exempt from permit requirements. An existing sign which is altered or replaced solely due to a change in name or product, substantially similar, installed in the same location, complies with all the provisions of this article, and it still has to undergo architectural review. So I think first, we need to know that whatever is there now was legally permitted. And it wasn't a matter of like sign creep where signs were added and no one, issued building permits for it.
Well, we have, Susan, my assistant today, showed me 2 permits that were never closed out. That's what she's doing. She's going through the files and finding things. I have not had a chance to review that. We need to find out if they had approval, which they may not have, for what exists already. I don't have them.
Okay.
So if they've never had approval, we may have to start from scratch because those permits have expired.
Right, because these provisions and existing signs, there has to have been some legality to it.
To be replaced
To be
accordingly.
replaced.
Right, exactly.
So,
I've got to review that. I don't know.
so then it's a matter of, with the replacement, they have to comply with the standards regarding signs.
Right.
And so what's in the ARB's purview is, for instance, if you look at A7, hopefully that's clear. A sign shall not have excessively bright or gaudy colors and materials. if we go up to the purposes section of the sign regulations, it says to promote public health, welfare. This article is intended to create a more pleasing appearance and community environment, particularly in the downtown business area, protect property values, preventing excess dissimilarity, are further intended to reduce sign or advertising distractions and obstructions that might contribute to accidents, etc. And then separately, you have other authorities given to you within the ARB section itself in terms of, what the objectives are. So to the point is that I think before the ARB is acting on these signs or commenting on them, I think you need to first establish what are they allowed. And then if they have things, if they already have signs that are present, which ones are considered continuation of something that's legal. And then if they're replacing them out, they have to still be considered in light of the intentions of the zoning and the sign regulations, which don't want things like bright or gaudy colors. And so I think if you wanted an example, for instance, of a canopy, you don't have to go very far to see the adjoining Stewart's, which is white, and that's it.
Well, exactly, yeah.
And that's for the ARB to consider. But, the ARB will ultimately make the determination of what is appropriate. But I think that when you see things like Sunoco on the canopy, Sunoco on, what canopy meaning the gas canopy, Sunoco on, the canopy on the building,
Right.
Miscellaneous other things that say Sunoco, you have to look at it from the definition of the sign and determine if it fits the definition of sign, and therefore it's controlled by this law. So I think that it's good to get the opinion of the ARB in terms of what will be allowed and what will be approved. But fundamentally, if this were a brand new building, they'd be allowed one sign. And I think we have to go back to what have they had legally that would fit within existing signs that they can continue to have, but still subject to the design regulations.
My work is cut out for me for
Well,
tomorrow.
we will.
Yes, you'll be working hard on this.
When we review that for the whole file.
Okay.
We'll go back.
Okay.
We'll go back before the permits that are now expired.
Right,
We're gonna take it all from there, and we'll get the preparation together. We need the help of the board here, this,
right.
board system, to make the ability of a business to choose a color that is selected by them.
Right.
That's the only way we're gonna get uniformity in the community.
Right, they look at the design,
Exactly.
you don't have to accept franchise,
Right.
design, you take the design that's appropriate based on what it said, community appearance. Jessica and Megan, I don't know if you heard that, but, the assistant building inspector, Susan, indicated that they just need to go through the files to see if you have building permits and appropriate approvals for the signs you have now to be able to continue them. And I don't know if you have that information, if you do, then it'd be good for you to supply it to the village, but they are going to do that research and you can consult with them in terms of what their findings are. Because, as I said, I almost think we have to take a step backward to understand what you're even allowed to have before we go forward with what you're now allowed to have. Sort of what's pre-existing and legal versus what they're allowed to go, to have going forward. Okay. Megan and Jessica, you have more comments, questions?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I just
Yes.
thank you for your consideration and your time tonight. Yeah, I agree with your assessment that we need to figure out first what we are allowed and then how we can conform to make what we are allowed
Yeah.
acceptable and pleasing to
Yeah.
the village.
It's going to be important because, for instance, with your freestanding sign, there are provisions in the sign regulations that say you're not allowed internally illuminated signs. And so if you look at the Stewarts, they have a freestanding sign that have the gooseneck lighting that's shining down onto the sign. So, you know, it's gonna be important to demonstrate that you were entitled to that sign in the first place, that it was legal, there's a building permit for it, that there's something there that allows it to continue. And I think that's kind of step one in all of this.
Correct.
All right? Anybody else?
Sounds good.
Anybody else have comments or questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I just have one, you use one standard gray and one standard blue. Am I correct on that?
Were you able
Or
to hear
your
that?
paint colors, or?
Yeah, as far as your colors, I know it was onyx gray, now it's changed to a different gray, but you usually use gray and blue. Now, do you have one shade of gray, one shade of blue? Or do you have different hues or different variations or densities of it?
There's different variations, there's 2 blues and 2 grays. One of the grays is more like a white.
And the blue, is it lighter or darker?
There's a dark blue and a lighter blue.
And what's proposed on what we have right now, would that be the dark blue?
Or,
Yeah, the proposal that we're looking at, there's images here where the sign gets changed to like A+. Would that be the dark blue that's projected in this image?
the A+ would be the dark blue.
And so would be the canopy.
The canopy is a combination of the dark blue and the light blue at the bottom.
Right, okay.
So I think typically for architectural review, it's good to have color swatches sent to the ARB in terms of if you're talking about a lighter, you know, darker blue or hues, etc. To just submit something, because honestly, I can print out your application on my computer, and the village will print theirs out on their computer, and they'll be different shades, because it's just, or sorry, yeah, so that happens on copiers, on printers. So to have the sample, you know, that you typically have, a color swatch, send a couple of those in, then there'll be no question what that color is, because it's on a swatch. Yeah, I think that's very useful. All right. Steve, anything else?
No,
You're good?
I don't want to exhaust any more people's time.
That's all right.
No, I took a lot of time into this, you know, I mean.
No, you spent it.
I'm up on ladders,
That's
you know, as you
wonderful.
can, ripping out canopies, and trying to figure out, you know, well, I'm trying to figure out,
Yeah.
looking at the plan, and I'm trying to figure out how you redo it when you look at what's there.
Yes,
And so,
and I think those are fair questions,
you know,
because there's a representation of what and how it's gonna be constructed, and in
Yeah,
fact,
we
it's
don't
going to be
have any of that.
something different, yeah,
yeah, we don't, there's none of that, you know.
yeah.
I
So
don't
you
know
want
what
more
all
of the
this
building.
electrical outlet, what's gonna be changed, these boxes get, you know,
Yeah,
it's gonna be a whole different lighting system,
right,
which we don't have, so.
right. And the lighting, if the lighting is being changed out, or if it's part of the system, the lighting needs to be known now, in terms of the lumen levels, in terms
Well,
of,
yeah,
again, the LED
exactly, yeah,
color.
which they say it is gonna change,
Right, so
this
that's
interior
why we
will
would
be rebuilt.
Yeah, that's why we need to have foot
Right.
candles, because let's say for argument's sake, there's 3 lights under the canopy. And then with a new system, there are 8. And,
Well, right now, they're all,
yeah, so I think it should be very specific, and something to help in that regard is foot candles, because again, this isn't just about the sign aspect of the review, but at some point, there's also building department review of whether you're fitting within what's allowed versus what's in fact.
well, that's why I had taken this photograph, and I was on the ladder trying to figure out if the entire canopy is gonna be removed, and I can only go, they say it's a mistake on here, but I'm going on
Yeah,
whatever information I had at that time.
right.
But, you know, just looking at this, you know, I'm still wondering how they're gonna pull that fascia off and, you know, rebuild all in here, so that needs to be addressed, you know.
Yeah, maybe you could submit just a narrative that relates to how you would remove or replace, so it's clear what's being removed and replaced. You know, I think a narrative would be helpful, and then there may have to be some revisions to some of the information if it's incorrect from what you said, that wasn't the intent. So, you know, if the application has to be updated to revise anything that was represented that's not happening, that should really be resubmitted, but I would hold off until you know for sure what's happening with the building department. And then go forward from there, would be my suggestion. Although you're free to do what you would like to do. All right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good, all right?
If we're concluding now the ARB meeting,
Yeah, so I'm going to hop off the Zoom, and we will see you again another time.
thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Ted is chairperson,
Right.
you would need to make a motion, well, first of all, are there any comments or questions from the audience? There's no further questions, Ted, make a motion to adjourn the meeting,
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
and then, can someone second the motion? All in favor?
All in favor?
Okay, meeting is adjourned, we'll close this up, and then the committee can continue business as usual. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you very much. Your board was very